we would just move all the furniture out of this one bedroom, which was already small to begin with. And we would just do improv for 3 hours, just like laughing our asses off and having the time of our lives. I would do improv, and then the next day I felt like way better on these calls. I was like taking more risks on these calls. I was listening better to the customers. I was finding opportunities to sell them stuff. I tried out for my college improv team and like absolutely bombed the audition. This is the same improv team that like Mike Birbiglia was on, and John Mulaney and Nick Kroll, like all of these great people. You learn way more from your failures than you do your successes. If I only won, if I only closed deals and won, how the hell would I know what I'm good at?
Hey everybody, Walter Crosby with Helix Sales Development, your host of Sales and Cigars. Today, my guest is Kevin Hubschmann. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever watched a comedian work a room? You ever watched a comedian on stage that just killed it? Have you ever thought about how those skills as a comedian or an improv relate to sales? That's what we're going to talk about today. Kevin he's done stand-up, he's done improv, and he's been super successful in sales. And we talk about how those skill sets overlap. Think of it as a Venn diagram. And we get into some of the details of it. We don't talk, shop in terms of other comedians and things, but we talk about what those skills are. And I think if you start watching comedians and what's their intent and what they're doing, and how that applies to sales, you'll find a new way to look at comedy after this recording. So go grab a cocktail, grab a cigar, strap in for another impactful episode of Sales and Cigars. Thanks. Kevin, welcome to Sales and Cigars. I appreciate you taking a little time out of your schedule to jump on and have a conversation.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
We had a little ruckus getting this thing rolling to get you here, but you're feeling better and appreciate the effort.
Of course, ready to rock.
All right, so you got a little different background than most of my guests, which I'm looking forward to this conversation. So a couple of my passions we'll cover, but something I've always been interested in and never had the balls to do anything related to comedy. We'll get into that, but talk to us a little bit about your background, how you got into sales, how you got into comedy, and let's start there.
Yeah. So when I graduated school, was looking for a job, didn't know what I wanted to do, moved to New York City. My brother lived there. He said, you can crash on my couch, figure it out. So I started interning at this company, Splash, and they couldn't pay me because they were like, we're too early. We got to figure out, we don't know what we even need. And so I said, all right, whatever. I'll do whatever your team needs me to do. So I would be doing support calls. I do whatever they needed. And the first time that they actually found a role for me on these support calls, I would be like, oh, do you want 1,000 email credits? And then it would be like $30. I'd be like, great. So you started to see I was like bringing in money with like getting people on our support calls, turning them from some email credits or like getting their own URL for their website, another $25. So I was just kind of selling these like really rinky-dink small items. So like, all right, this guy's got something. And so, but I was still exploring what I wanted to do. Didn't know that was going to be a career option for me. So, my brother who I was crashing with said, hey, let's do some improv. I used to do improv, earlier when I moved to New York. Let's get a coach. So my two brothers and my best friend, we got a coach and we did improv for 3 hours a week after this job I had. And we would just move all the furniture out of this one bedroom, which was already small to begin with. And we would just do improv for 3 hours, just like laughing our asses off and having the time of our lives. I mean, we'd go into it being like, should we cancel? we had a long day, and we'd leave being like, damn, we got to go get a drink and talk about what the hell we just did. That was madness and hilarious. Yeah, and we cannot go to sleep right now. That was so much fun. And so eventually I became, in sales, I was like, hey, I got to either have a full-time job here or move on. And they said, you're doing pretty well, selling some stuff. Do you want to go and be our first salesperson? So that was how I got my first role in sales, while I was also doing improv, like at night after this job. And it was very interesting because I would do improv, and then the next day I felt like way better on these calls. I was like taking more risks on these calls. I was listening better to the customers. I was finding opportunities to sell them stuff. And, I was just doing a better job communicating, listening, and just feeling like I could go for it. And
but there's a couple things there that that you could talk about for a half hour. You fell backwards into sales because like you just needed to do something. I went to New York without a job and did something similar, without the improv and without sleeping on my brother's couch because I didn't have anybody. So I mean, that's really that's common, right? That a lot of us fall backwards into it, and it just doesn't. But you leverage the other skill set you have to get better at sales. But you said, guys, I need a job, right? Like you asked for the order. You asked for the to get a job, right? Those are like a couple of things that you're going to tell the rest of your story. But you built on this idea that you can take this creativity and just go have a conversation with a prospect, right? Totally. No pressure. But correct me if I'm wrong. If you're doing improv, it's a big part of that is listening to what you're going to get, and then being able to take that and do something with it.
Exactly. And it's also like working together with other people, and like kind of go just like a really big collaboration thing. So, I was also able to connect better with the people I was asking for jobs with, you know what I mean? So it was like, I found that these improv skills were translating, and they were almost like preparing me and training me for this sales role that I was getting into. And so this was the first time I realized, like, oh, even if I don't become like a professional comedian, these skills that I'm learning right now are actually investing in my future as a professional. And that was the first like aha moment I had of like, oh, okay, I can use comedy for something other than like trying to make it a career.
But the skill sets are parallel, because of the listening, being creative, being collaborative. Because that's what with sales, that's what we had to do. We got to be able to listen to what they need, what their problems are, and figure out a way to collaborate with them, with our solutions, with our opportunities to see if there's a fit.
Exactly. And like a lot of, as I kept getting into improv, I eventually got into stand-up, and that was like one of the things where you notice like, okay, there's a script when it comes to stand-up, but sometimes you got to go off script. And so I was able to like use my improv skills to listen to, all right, what is, if this call isn't going the way my pitch needs to go, I got to be able to take a left turn when the GPS is telling me to take a right turn. And so that really, these skills again kept manifesting themselves into my daily lives, and like my 4-figure deals turned to 5 figures, to eventually, I nailed a 7-figure deal when it was all said and done. And I really do attribute that to like, I just kept honing these comedy skills, and they kept showing up in the form of hitting quota and getting more commission and really
Did you make that connection in the moment? Did you see that and feel that when you were going through the sale? Did you feel it? Or is it something you sit back and reflect on?
I think it's definitely something I sit back and reflect on. I knew what I was doing was fulfilling me. And that's all I knew. I knew that this was like scratching an itch that I had. And I don't think it was until afterwards that I realized like, oh, okay, there were times where I was like, we got to get our company to do this, to do some improv. Like this is really good. And so I definitely had moments while we were doing that. But I was really chasing my passion, and I was chasing something that my passion was just, exploring comedy. I loved comedy. I loved all types of comedy. I didn't know what improv was. I tried out for my college improv team and like absolutely bombed the audition. And like, this is the same improv team that like Mike Birbiglia was on, and John Mulaney and Nick Kroll, like all of these great people. And I was like, okay, let me give it a shot. And I just did terrible. And I didn't look at comedy for another 4 years after that. But yeah, it was a lot of it was my brother encouraging me to do it and get into it. And then I just got bit by the bug. I was like, I just got to keep going with this. And then it was like a hobby, and it was something that I was able to do, but it was kind of just like happening subliminally that this was all really working for me. And I knew I was growing in my sales role, but I also just knew that I was like able to talk to people a lot better. And I was like, there were moments where I was like, damn, I feel like Neo in the Matrix, like everything's like going slower at me. And I'm like figuring this stuff out way better than I was the day before. And I really, in that moment, I definitely was attributing it to improv. I think it was until later where I was like, oh, improv and stand-up. It's like all been my, background training to, be the salesperson I am today.
So getting on stage, no matter what it is, it takes balls. It takes practice. You got to be able to, usually you have a script. But you make that point that, in my belief, if we give a salesperson a script and go out and say, go use this script, we're not giving the script to the prospect. We're not giving the script to the buyer. And that buyer can make the left-hand turn when we're expecting them to make the right-hand turn. So you got to be able to be fast on your feet. You got to be able to look for where you want to go in sales. And I love the parallel. And I had never thought about that until, you and I talked a few weeks ago about this idea. And then I started thinking about it. It's like, wow, I mean, it really is a strong parallel to be able to get up and try to talk to people. Because as a kid, we're taught, don't go talk to strangers. Don't ask a lot of questions. Don't be asking about money, right? And then you fall back into sales, or you get a job in sales, and what do they ask you to do? Go talk to strangers. Yeah. So, which is a lot of head trash for somebody young in sales to go do it. And you worked your way through it. So here's a question that just kind of came to me as you were talking. Have you ever thought about coaching or creating some kind of program to help salespeople at different levels think about sales from a creative, comedic point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something that we do now. I do coaching, and we do different workshops. A lot of our business does something that's called laughing and development. And laughing and development is using those skills to create custom workshops to help people sell better, or make better discovery calls, or hone in their pitches. We're using applied improv, applied stand-up to create these different opportunities where people can like do games and exercises to hone in on these soft skills that otherwise get kind of blown over when we're in other sales training. So we offer that now as a business, and then I personally, get in. I have private clients that I work with from a coaching perspective, because it's been great. I've had the opportunity to be in enterprise sales for the first 6+ years of my career, and know all the hoops you got to jump through. And I've had excellent mentors along the way that taught me as I went. And then the last 6 years, my mentors have been comedians. And so I've been able to kind of merge both of those worlds while also running my own business to kind of really understand, the full picture and all the different types of sales. Like as silly as it sounds, like, I went from going from selling 7-figure deals to like having to go back to selling like hundreds of dollars of stuff. And so I had to I went backwards, and then I'm working my way up towards higher stuff. So I've seen the full gamut of what's a transactional sale, what is a multi-layered long sales cycle. And my whole idea is like, we can look at comics that we love watching after work, in between calls, on the weekends, and we can go, well, I can learn a lot from that individual. I just have to reframe it in my mind and really take what they have to say to heart and apply it to my life.
Okay. So I want to try to unpack some of that. So it's a soft skill that a salesperson needs to hone, needs to get better at. That comedy can help them, the overlap there. Can you give an example of what a skill would be that they could use to improve their ability to connect, make sales, and be more collaborative with a buyer?
Yeah, I'll give you two. So I'll start with the first one, one with an improv example, and the second one with a stand-up example. So with improv, the number one most important thing in improv is listening. It's active listening. It's no coincidence that is also the most important thing in sales. You're actually listening to your customer. So to understand what their problems are and kind of uncover anything that's like some nuggets of information that you can use. So in improv, that's exactly what it is. You got to listen to your scene partner, and you have to say, where are you taking this? Because I'm along for the ride with you. And that's no different when it comes to sales, because you're going, okay, where do you want to take this call? I'm obviously driving the call, and I'm going to dictate, where the conversation is going. But this is going to be a collaborative effort, or else, I could just send you a video of me doing a demo, which is obviously not what neither of us want to do. So it's about kind of creating that environment to be like, okay, I'm here to listen to you. Let's reduce that talk time. And there's another thing I love to repeat to myself. I have it post-it noted on my computer here. And because you said I could curse, I always leave out this curse word, but I'll say it here. It's fuck your good idea. And that's the idea of, in your brain, you go, okay, let me pause. Fuck my good idea. Let me listen to somebody else for a second and let me hear what they have to say. And my idea can wait. And so I think if you have that going in your head, it's like kind of like that person that works the crosswalk, and they're telling you, hey, stop. Someone else is crossing at this time. And when you're ready, you can go through it. Or when we're ready, that's your opportunity. And so I think that's a really important skill that you need to have when you're doing improv, is you have to have that person that's saying, hey, let me pause for a second and let me listen, maybe even let me ask a question to have them reiterate and listen further. And it might not be where I was planning on taking it, but I might have just uncovered exactly what's going to get me this deal, what their real pain was. Because people love to talk about their problems. So how can you get them to be, and by being hyper curious and giving them validation on their problem, saying, hey, this is a problem that our customers have too. And so kind of adding that to that. So that's what I would say. Number one with improv is listening. Number one skill. Number two, you can find it in stand-up. And Jerry Seinfeld said that if he didn't get into stand-up, he would have gotten into advertising, because the skills are very similar in that you have to say the most in the least amount of words. You have to be able to convey the most emotions, and you have to be able to convey the biggest message that's mostly impactful in the smallest amount of words. And that is what I learned from doing stand-up, was starting to cut out a lot of the ums and the uhs and the words that were just filling up my I just used an but my different pitches. And I was saying, how can I continue to tweak it? And whenever I'm looking at my own stand-up set, that's the first thing you do. I'm saying, I can do this joke, this setup and punchline. I'm doing it in 30 words or whatever it is. I need to get it down to 15. What can I throw out and still make this car run? So that is something that I started to learn as well, is when I was doing my pitch, after I was done listening, what is my pitch like? Am I making myself so clear that the game of telephone that my client is going to be playing after this call to their buyer and to their executive, are they going to get it? And the only way to do that and to ensure that is making it so unbelievably clear, poignant, and specific getting that point across. And that's exactly the skills you have to have in stand-up. You have to be able to get a joke every 8 to 13 seconds, get a laugh in those moments, and get the crowd interested. So in order to do that, you can't waste a word. A word is a second, and you need and you can't get to the joke in 30 seconds. You got to get to it in like 10.
So editing, right, is a skill in writing. Stand up and writing there's a lot there, right? There's a connected. You're constantly writing and thinking. So in sales, we need to be editing ourselves, and that's what you started with, like, fuck your good idea, right? That's a really, it's about making assumptions that I know best for you when we have no idea what their real problem is. We think we might, but it's going in exploring that. So
Totally.
Active listening and being concise. I mean, I was taught to write a long time ago in a high school class. The guy taught us the most about writing: brevity, clarity, and unity, right? So you're not done editing until you can't take away any more words without losing the context that you're trying to get. And it reminds me, I think it was Hemingway that wrote the shortest story ever written was 6 words. It might not have been Hemingway. and it was, for sale, baby shoes, never worn. Right? And 6 words tell a very sad story.
That's a sad story.
But it's still a story in just 6 words. And that's what you're talking about. And as salespeople, we ramble. And we just do what I just did with again. So now I'm going to be self-conscious. How does that practice listening to yourself deliver stand-up, or listening to yourself on a call? Like, that's another skill set, isn't it? Being able to listen to yourself and cringe and work with the edit. Is that
absolutely? I think that it's a skill set that stand-up comedians and sellers have. Is that, and sellers have gongs, stand-up comedians have voice notes on their phone, where they get up on stage, they make sure that they're able to record their sets or videotape it if they can, if they're actually even trying to watch how they move around the stage, which is part of their delivery. But the idea is, let me go through this and let me cut it down. Let me get it tighter. And that's the same thing with sales. It's about, you need to find what I call it finding low stakes reps, finding micro stages. How can you have a low stakes rep? In stand up, that can come in the form of like an open mic or a smaller show, or even just like telling your joke to another comedian and saying, hey, what do you think of this? Some of my best jokes that I've written did not come from me performing them on stage. It came from me actually talking to a comedian and going, man, I know that there's something here, but I just need a new perspective on it. And then I try it on stage, but like that joke is what absolutely killed me. And killed it for me. And it's now one of my favorite jokes that I do on stage. And that's the same thing in sales. You can have a low stakes rep with a friend, with a colleague, over coffee, over a Zoom.
Role playing things out with a sales manager or a sales coach, right? That should be a safe place to like try something, to go do something that you haven't done before. And I know I've listened to Marin's podcast. Used to listen to his podcast about where he would write on stage, right? And he would work shit out. And I think a lot of people do that as they get ready for their big special. But that's hard to do in live. You need to be able to do it. Sales, it's easier. Like you do it in a role play or in a coaching session or a debrief or a planning call. But it's harder to do on stage, where you take an idea and start to mess with it and see what the reaction is, because it's a little more risky when you're standing on stage in front of people.
I would say, I also love writing on stage as well. I love the opportunity to I host a lot of shows, and so hosting is a really good opportunity to write on stage because you can try stuff in between and just kind of try an idea or do crowd work or whatever it might be. And I would try stuff on stage in a sales perspective all the time, like on real calls. And the best way to try is what stand-ups do. Stand-ups try on stage all the time, new material, but what they do is that they make sure it's sandwiched in between tried and true material so that they can have the opportunity to win that individual over, and they give people the show that they came for. And that's the same thing in sales. People came for a show, whether you want to frame it as that or not. Your discovery call is a show, your demo is a show. People want the goods. You're getting some time on their calendar, so you got to give them your best shot. That
Got to
doesn't mean
deliver.
you can't go for it. It doesn't mean that you can't take a shot and go, all right, you know what, I'm going to throw this statistic in that's going to help me deliver like an ROI conversation that I'm going to have, or I'm going to ask them about their sales or their CRM stack to maybe see if I could get a little bit more information. And so what is that thing that worked? And maybe it's like, I don't know what it is. And it's like, well, tried it, didn't work out, but you don't know until you try. And I think that's another thing I learned a lot on the stand-up stage is reps and bombing. Like you gotta be good with bombing. You gotta be cool with being like, well, I tried and it didn't work. I mean, salespeople, I actually believe that sales taught me to be comfortable with failure on stage. I learned how to fail in sales before I learned how to fail on stage, because I've lost so many more deals than I've won because I've tried and I've gone after it. And losing those deals oftentimes feel like you feel it way more than winning those deals, in my opinion, because the win is so ephemeral and the loss is, what did I do wrong? Could I have changed this? Could I have talked to the right person?
It is. I agree with that statement for those of us who are professional salespeople who actually trying to get better, right? The loss hangs there a little bit longer. We got to get over it. We got to move on and get to the next one. But when you're sitting there, for me, when I'm sitting over there in the chair with a cigar, like, how the hell did I lose that deal? Because that was mine. What did I do? Right? Those are the ones that you can learn from. And, from comedians I've heard talk, interviewed with and talk about it, that they get so much out of those bombing, right? That loss. We lose more than we win, obviously, right? And the only place that you get paid more is maybe baseball, right? that batter, could be batting 3 out of 10 and he's doing okay, right? He's making several $1 million of long-term contracts.
Babe Ruth, one of the greatest hitters of all time. I think he hit like 313. So like he hit like I could be off on that, but anyways, let's say he missed 70
out too. He struck out a lot.
He missed 70% of the shots that he took, and he's the great Bambino. So it's the great. I think I love the baseball connection. I've made that a lot when talking about failure in comedy, and it's also about stacking your wins. Like I lost the deal today. Really bummed about it for the 10 minutes I let myself be bummed about it for, but also in that 10 minutes I was going, well, what did I do wrong? Like what was it? And then I figured it out and I marked it down and I said, all right, I'm going to change that the next time I go after it. And that's you learn way more from your failures than you do your successes. If I only closed deals and won, how the hell would I know what I'm good at? I'm just doing it. Or rather, how would I know what I'm bad at? And how you know what you're bad at allows you to become such a more well-rounded, not just salesperson, but business professional.
But you got to care about those outcomes, and you want to get better, right? If you don't have that drive and you're just doing the transactional thing, then it doesn't matter. So, I mean, I think those connections between comedy and sales and business and life, right? I mean, girls that we dated in college or high school, right? We learned a lot, like what we don't like and what we can tolerate and what we're interested in. And they learned a lot from what they want and what they can tolerate from a guy. I mean, the opportunities for losing is abundant in our lives. We just got to work with it and try to get better. We started before we turned on the recording. I told you I lived in New York and I would go to the comic strip and I could, I went to all the clubs, but I saw Jerry Seinfeld working, right, and doing the work to become what he's become. And he wasn't, I mean, I saw Carlin do it as well.
Yeah.
He what you called sandwiching. I didn't realize he was doing it, but that's what he did. He did a couple of his bits, and then he pulled out a 3x5 cards. He said, "I want to try some new stuff on you guys tonight," and nobody's heard this before, right? So he made us feel special, and then he tried some shit out that worked, and some of it didn't work, and then he put the 7 words on the backside of it, and everybody walked out of
the
there.
rest is history.
Yeah. So I love we made the good connection here. I think for people to think about actively listening and how there is a big connection between comedy. So if people out there want to learn more about how they might be able to use your comedic skills and your sales skills to get better, what is the best way for them to reach out to Kevin? We'll have some stuff in the show notes, but where do you want to push them to?
Yeah, I mean, come and connect with me on LinkedIn, Kevin Hubschmann. If you do have a team and you're looking to level up your sales team specifically, we have corporate events that we run all over the country. I do keynotes myself if you're looking for that. But going to Laugh.Events, that's our website. And that's where you can, book a laughing and development session with us, or book a sales specific workshop. Or even just book a comedian to go and just join your team and maybe celebrate a hard quarter or a holiday party or something like that.
Or go celebrate a great year to someplace fun.
Get those wins in. Salespeople are so stressed.
Yeah, I love it. So last question, Kevin, past or present, any relationship with cigars in your life?
I don't have a strong relationship with cigars. The last time I smoked a cigar, my wife turned to me and was like, "I don't think you know what you're doing." And I was like, "Well, no one taught me, so I don't really know what I'm doing." I have a little bit of asthma, so I'm probably the lamest guest you've had when it comes to cigars. But I will say I saw my friend smoking a cigar before our friend's wedding last weekend. And I was like, that's a look. I need that. That guy looks awesome. And I need more cigars in my life.
Was there a tuxedo involved in that? Who was smoking a cigar?
Oh yeah. It was black tie, baby. I mean, it was, you had that cigar. He had that cigar going. And I was like, he just went from black tie optional to black tie. Absolutely.
007 kind of a look. Right?
Yeah.
You just needed a martini glass in the other hand.
Oh yeah, that came later.
I can say that had a similar experience. The first time I had a cigar was at a bar at a nice little resort, and I didn't know what I was doing. I just thought it would be cool. I was with a freshly minted girlfriend, and I thought it'd be cool to have a cigar and have a couple of cocktails. And she said the exact same thing to me. I don't think you know what you're doing. And she was 100% right, because 30 minutes later, I wasn't feeling very good.
Yeah.
And it was a tough objection to get over, vomiting in the bathroom and then trying to be amorous. It didn't work. So I couldn't get over it.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes that gets in the way of us trying to look cool and we blow it.
But I went back and tried again and figured it out and found somebody like, yeah, you don't inhale those. That's really stupid. Why would you do that? So,
isn't it, if you inhale it, it's like smoking 12 cigarettes?
I've never had a cigarette in my life. I've never tried it ever. But if it could be like taking a pack, because it's a lot to absorb. And on a day that I would have 12 cigars in the course of a day, and it's not a lot, but sometimes I do. that last one, I got to be careful because there's a lot of still that residual in your mouth and face and nose. So Mark Twain used to have 12 scars every day. His constitution was a little stronger than mine, I
think. they wrote a little bit different back then.
Yeah, he was. They might have been lighter cigars, but all right. So, folks, if you really want to have some fun and get some laughs, but really give your team an edge, give Kevin a call. Look up, Laughs.Events. There's some really good ideas there. Have a good time and learn putting those two together, because sales is too hard not to have fun doing it.
Absolutely. And there's I think the best thing that people could do is start to look at comedians a little bit differently and look at them obviously as someone that is going to make you laugh, but go, man, those people are masters at their crafts. And I think of a lot of comedians, if people are putting their sales demos on and people see how salespeople move in their professional worlds, I think there would be that kind of mutual respect. And I think there's so much, there's so many things that cross over, and you can really learn a lot from comedians because of what they're doing with their craft, and salespeople can really take a lot away from it.
Yeah, because both jobs require some guts. Both jobs require preparation and doing the work. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful. So appreciate it, Kevin. Thanks.
Thank you.